because the problem now make them kaput. Stand together now, people no fighting. One love is what we are preaching. Let's upgrade our understanding and stop this.
Thank you for staying with us. In the most recent time, in the past 1-2 weeks, JAMB has been in the news and has been receiving a joint administration, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has been at the receiving end of public criticism for the mass failure recorded and the glitches in the 2025 run of its Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME. Now, 2025 is not the first time JAMB would be forced to annul results, and at scale. I mentioned earlier that in 1997, September 15 to be precise, JAMB annulled 95,000 UTME results, having released 376,000. Then, the head of JAMB, Bello Salim, said the results were cancelled after the candidates were involved in what they call massive, widespread cheating. He said the cheating involved impersonation and swapping of scripts. A year later, JAMB celebrated its 20th anniversary, and there were reports of some Nigerians agitating that JAMB should be scrapped. Well, it's all about the education quality gap. You know, in our next conversation with Dr. Abiola Awoshika-Fakwetu, who is Rector, founding CEO of Olawonyi Awoshika School of Innovative Studies. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Dr. Adetola Salau, who is Essay Education and Policy Formulation and Human Capital Development in Kwara State. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Salau.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let me begin with you, Prof. We've talked about this for so long. First of all, what was your initial response or reaction to the hula baloo about JAMB?
Well, we were right in the middle of it.
Oh.
Because I happened to run a secondary school. So a lot of my kids were like, some of them cried all night saying, this cannot be my result. So it touched me personally. And I had to go in and talk to them and advise them and encourage them that this is just a blimp in your life history when you tell it in the future. So don't think this is the end of the story. And whatever is going to happen with JAMB, whether they're going to listen to us or they're not, you must make sure, that your heart is at peace. And we had to encourage the parents as well. So I felt it personally. But if you looked back at your archives, when JAMB had, I think it must be 12 years ago, and we were talking about, okay, let's scrap JAMB and whatever. And I was a proponent of scrapping JAMB at that time, that they have served their usefulness. But I'm going to, take a different stand this time, because I now understand why JAMB is a necessity. Because we have a limited number of spaces for all these students that want to go into universities. So we need to manage that space. We need to make sure that it is, we put our best foot forward. That is what I believe JAMB is there to do. We could say, go to the universities, show them your WAEC results, and, write applications and do all the fun things, that people do in other places. But this is Nigeria. This is where we found ourselves. When you start a university, you have a quota. So when all those quotas are added together, it only amounts to 700,000. Yes, 700,000. So when 2 million take JAMB, sorry, we cannot take all of you 2 million. We can only take 700,000.
In the universities?
Yes, sir.
All of the universities?
Yes, sir. So it's a gamble that I think I'm going to be one of that 700,000 that goes into university this year. And that is why JAM cannot, you cannot do JAM this year and say you keep your result till, for another 5 years. So what? You're keeping it for what? We don't have space for you. You have to come in every year and contest. But nobody tells us any of this stuff. Now, the crisis that happened back 12 years ago, when I was a proponent of the scrapping JAM, something similar is now happening, with JAM. Not, I mean, they've remitted, chunks of money, with which we all thought, oh wow, this is wonderful, because after 3 million, and then you now have 3 billion and 7 billion and then 9 billion. And, I now found out that 2024, JAM generated 22 billion from these, orphans and whomever would put their money in the bucket.
To write JAM.
To write JAM. And they remitted 6 billion to the federal government. The federal government had initially given them a 4 billion grant. So why are we giving an organization that generates 22 billion a 4 billion grant?
Well, that's another conversation altogether, Prof.
No, so,
but I do get the point.
Yeah,
I do get the point.
Yeah. So my problem is, can we find a different way?
Okay. Let me ask Dr. Salau. I mean, she is both an educationist and a government official. So maybe you have answers that we don't have, Dr. Salau.
Well, I want to say good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
I miss you.
It's good to see
I
you.
wish I was in Lagos so I could give you a hug. It's been a long time, Prof.
Yes.
I respect Prof a lot. She's one of our warriors right there in the field, working really to create a future-ready populace among our students. I've actually done work with her. So when she says she's been working, she's discussing this, she's really there in the field, really doing God's work. Yes, I've been following the situation with JAM. And as somebody who took JAM exam, I actually felt a lot of pain for the students and the parents. I really did. Because I remember what it felt like waiting and waiting for those results. And I have been reading on both sides of the equation, people who are calling for scrapping it, people who are saying let it stay. It has its uses. And I also went to school in the States. I've also taken the exams that we have there. I didn't take the SAT to go to college. I took the GRE for graduate school. So I understand about these exams and their needs. And as Prof, rightly said, the funnel is really narrow. We don't have enough spaces. In fact, one of the biggest things we need to start addressing is how do we take care of these students who are not able to get through the funnel to go into these higher institutions? That's another major discussion to have. But for now, of course, all of the hula hoops around this situation with the tests and our students being able to deal with this emotional, it's an emotional, I have to call it trauma because there's no other word to use than that, what the students went through. And also remedying this situation about our CBT. In fact, I've been doing quite a lot of research about our CBT test, particularly for WAEC. And I wish now I had also done research when I was doing research about JAM, because JAM is another, I like to call those tests high-stake tests, because that's what they are, high-stake tests. It's like all or nothing, like Prof said. If our students don't make it, they have to wait a whole year, now take it again. Same thing with WAEC. So that I've always been interested in WAEC. That's one exam that is another major, what's the word? A gatekeeper. There you go. That's the word I like. Was the test, those exams.
You know,
The nature.
yeah, my apologies. The reason that, this is becoming more interesting is, on the one hand, exam malpractice is not a new thing. On the other hand, it is an attempt to solve the it's an anti-malpractice measure, according to JAM, that is responsible for this upset, so to speak. So, as a policy formulation expert and an official of government, how do you think this should be addressed?
When it comes to exam malpractice, I actually understand what they are doing and how they are trying to utilize. That's what I was getting to about research. How they are trying to utilize use the use of CBT to curb our students being able to cheat, because that's the real operative word here, being able to cheat and not being able to test their true ability, and also making sure that it's equitable, because the access is at the key of all of it. We want John A to be able to not utilize measures that makes him have unfair advantages over maybe Mary or John. Maybe what other name do I have? Another guy. Maybe let's say D. That's the whole idea. They're trying to make sure that it's equitable. They're trying to make sure that access for everyone and it's fair. And that's what it should be. It should be fair. But unfortunately, there are also gaps with ICT, and that's what was trying to be addressed. I read the whole thing about the patch and how the patch was supposed to take care of making sure that computer A does not have the same B, and just making it fair. It really needs to be fair. As Prof said, I can't imagine being a student. I mean, I do remember. I said I took JAM. I do remember being a student and coming out and okay, this is how I believe I was science. This is how I believe I fared on physics. This is how I believe I fared on chemistry. I really am looking forward to, and that's what I want to hear more about, us being able to have immediate results and us being able to have a server where we can go back and be able to check through these results and be able to go back and address whatever, I know that's what we're getting to,
Okay.
whatever gaps our students have. And that is really, really.
Now, to the students again, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Salau. To the students, there's something that you said that I really like. And I'm hearing that for the second time from a parent. So, a Nigerian university in one of the states in the Southwest wrote an exam. A Nigerian student in that university wrote an exam, got a particular result, and complained to the mom, "Mom, this cannot be my result. I am better than this." And the mom said, "Indeed, my son is better than that." So somehow the guy, got persuaded by someone else, not the parent, to go complain to the school authority that this cannot be my exam, and called for a remark or something. And the thing was reviewed, and indeed, the guy got better marks than he got the previous time. And the first thing you said was to comfort the students and now take the matter to JAMB. I think that perhaps there is a way to instill that in not just in private schools, but in public schools as well, to be able to query their lecturers, their teachers, the school authority, and say, "This is not my mark." Would you call that another way of developing the human capital among the students?
Oh, absolutely. But you see, our background doesn't prepare us to do that. It takes a bold person to say, and a confident person to say, you know what, this is not my result. At home, you are asked to shut up. Go to your room. Don't, even in church, keep quiet. So we are not built to
challenge authority.
Challenge authority. And so that is one thing that we need to build in. In fact, it was a primary thing that, I try to instill in my students to say, you know what, if you're confident, first of all, I teach them confidence. A lot of them, when I meet them in the hallway, I shake their hands and their hands are limp. And I said, no, come back, shake it again with, confidence. And then they quickly grab my hand. That is how we build confidence in these children. Anywhere in the world, when we go to America or we go to the United Kingdom, we are, very passive and, and as aggressive as Nigerians are. But when we get over there, it's like we just keep quiet. But the average American will challenge you and will tell you why this is, not right. So something has to be especially done, and especially, like you said, in public schools, to give students the confidence that when you know you're right, then speak up. And don't be rude. Don't bad mouth your teachers or authority, but respectfully make your points known.
Okay. One of the issues that arose as a result of this jam issue is the fact that, on the one hand, there were technical glitches even on the laptops that some of them were using. On the other hand, some of them were seeing these laptops for the very first time. So, and add that to 20 million odd children out of school. A good number of people who wrote JAM were seeing the computers for the very first time, and they were supposed to write this same JAM or CBT within a regulated time. How do you think that should be addressed?
Well, I think that is the essence of the mock.
Okay.
They have a mock exam where they go in before the real JAM exam, so that to familiarize them, with.
But do you think one
Well, no,
mock?
it does not. It does. It does not. But at least it takes away the
initial fear.
the fear. If it's introduced to them. And again, we have to rethink our curriculum, and not in this sense that, okay, you have computer science or data analysis or whatever, and that's an exam you're going to take, but in how can you teach computers or data analysis without a computer? And so these are some of the things that we need to insist on. We just gloss over things, we have a curriculum, and it doesn't matter whether we are teaching it the right way. We just, at the end of the day, examine the students on what? So yes, even if it's just a few, let these students get a feel for, for us, it was a constant practice on the computer with CBT questions. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Tomorrow, you come back, you sit down. This is how you do it. This is how you do it, so that they get familiar with it. But we can't say that for all of our public schools.
Okay. Leading to that, to the same question for you, Dr. Salau.
I was just even saying that that's something that's very key that I needed to speak about,
okay,
which was digital literacy. But before I address digital literacy, because it's really what Prof was alluding to before was critical thinking, that it needs to be developed for our students. And I like to call the word that, the word for the skill that she was addressing, the ability, is agency, being able to have our students be able to speak up for themselves and own their own learning. It's very key. And it comes down to being able to lead them to be critical thinkers. And I believe that's some of the things that I'm very, very passionate and very driven about us pushing for. And Prof knows that I'm very, very adamant in STEM skills. And one of those STEM skills is critical thinking, being able to push and enable our students to have. And she's right. This will only happen through the revision of our curriculum. And this is something that she knows when I was in Lagos State, we really drove and pushed. And now that I'm in Kwara, I'm also pushing for us to do, because it's really, really key. She's right. In the States, I mean, just yesterday, I'm at the UK. That's why I'm not there with who I'm from. We are at a conference, a roundtable with other African educators, leaders, commissioners, ministers, so different people, high commissioners, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ghana, just to name it. And we went to a vocational school here, and we met 16 and 17-year-olds. And I was able to ask them questions about their learning, and they were able to answer me confidently about their learning and what they hope to do with it. I recorded a few of them because it was so inspiring, listening to how confident they were and how they were able to directly apply, okay, I'm learning this so that I can do this. This project I'm doing is going to do that. Critical thinking skills. It really encouraged me and reminded me that this is something that we do, and we are trying to push through the revision of our curriculum there in Kwara, and also infusing these skills. Now, we're talking about CBT. Let me get back to the subject at hand. Digital literacy, I agree with Prof, is something that should be embedded through all the subjects. It shouldn't be just when they go and do computer science. No, no, no. If they're learning science, they should be taught to create PowerPoint presentations. That way they get very comfortable with using them. They should also start having tests on the computer in these various subjects so that they learn how to find, they learn how to get comfortable using the computers and thinking, learning how to find themselves. I think this is really, really, really critical. And this is why in Kwara State, since last year, we've been running a major digital literacy drive. We started with a pilot program. We're scaling up. Right now, as I'm here speaking to people at Cambridge University, we're looking at how to even expand it even further. It's across the state, but even embed it in more schools, train more teachers. It is too important, as we can see from the debacle that has happened around this exam. It is very, very.
You know, Dr. Salau, I'm asking you more because you are a government official, and you invariably supervise public schools as well. Perhaps there is a need to understand the challenges that public schools or public schooling has in that regard. We spoke about insecurity earlier, and we know the issue of insecurity, particularly in the northern parts of the country. If they must use CBT, that means they have to learn at least some measure of the way, some length of the way, with using this same equipment. So how do we balance it in a way that on the one hand is the issue of security or a lack of it, on the other hand is this futuristic technology that they must adapt to, otherwise they'll be left in the rut?
That's where making sure that there's equitable access for all these students, and making sure that we create programs like this. And if there's schools, that's one thing I like that we were able to do when we were carrying out our pilot program. And even now in Kwara State, even if a school does not have the equipment or the place set up for that, what we do is we put it in a centralized location where students from other schools who are very, very excited and enthused are able to come in and plug into those. That's one way. And to be honest, another thing that I see that has really helped us and helped us last year, I have to be very, very frank about this, will be a PPP arrangement, a public-private partnership around. I'm going to actually put this out as a call to action. Those are people who have centers, who have programs around digital literacy, around things that have to do with digital skills, computers. Please look at it as a laudable legacy project that in your communities you want to empower, you want to equip these children with these skills.
Okay.
The more of them who are able to do this, the better it is for us as a society at large.
Okay. Prof, you want to speak to that, particularly from the private sector perspective that she talked about, a PPP arrangement, because if we don't have students who learned on computers, as you have also said the other time, we can't question them with CBTs, can we?
No, we cannot. And that is, and I think some communities are already onto this PPP arrangement, where you look at the results as a community and you say, no, we're not happy. And so what do? They contribute, they find ways to, whether established CBT centers that, at least they're free most of the time, besides exam time. So we pay them and we take public students in our public schools to these centers and get them to use the computers, get them familiar with it. And so maybe more communities need to do that. There could be philanthropic organizations or philanthropic-minded people that will make sure that the public schools, particularly, are exposed, especially when it's getting towards, exam time, so that they practice. Even if traditionally, the practice should have started in school, but because the facilities are limited, they may not have that. Because by the time, in fact, by the time a student is his third term in GSS1, he or she should be able to make PowerPoint presentations, should be able to use Word, should be so. And we're talking, computer softwares right here.
Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea for senators and House of Representative members who have what they call constituency projects to
exactly.
also expand in that
Oh,
direction?
absolutely. And we just found out a day or two ago that nobody has a constituency project that is less than $1 billion. None of those people.
Every month.
Yes. So please, what are they using the money for?
Well, we'll have to ask them.
So we need some of that money in education. We need to equip our students. I mean, if we're going to, and I applaud JAM. If this debacle hadn't happened, this would have been a great way, to limit exam malpractices. It would have been a sweet, outcome. Unfortunately, this marred it all. But, we cannot relent. We have to keep on. When we do something and it doesn't go the way we want it, we double back and we do it again.
We have to thank you very much this morning for your time today, and hope that all of us have learned a thing or two from your expertise. After all, Dr. Salau says, you've been working together on this. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Abiola Awoshika Fakwetu is the Rector and founding CEO, Olawoyin Awoshika School of Innovative Studies. And we've also had Dr. Adetola Salau, SA, Education, Policy Formulation and Human Capital Development in Kwara State. Thank you, Dr. Salau, for joining us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, when we return, we've talked about education, right? Talking about children. We're still talking about children when we return. Just stay with us.